We can talk about the podium and the polls, but like, let's talk about the losses, you know? That's where you learn the most about yourself.
How are you, Lance?
Yeah, man.
Very well, good to see you. Come on then. All right, you're in the chair on the far side. Life good?
Life's good.
So look, if I say to you, unearthing greatness, what springs to mind?
Just everything we're doing, you know, here at Aston Martin, it's such an exciting time for the team. You know, we're in this new factory, the new wind tunnel, some very exciting new people that have joined recently. And yeah, it's just exciting times.
And what about you personally? Is there a moment in your life where you reflect to go, that for me was a personal version of greatness?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those laps on Saturday when it all comes together, those days on Sunday where like we just get the strategy right and like get that perfect result that we're all looking for. You know, I think back to Istanbul in the rain in 2020 when we snatched pole position. The conditions were super tricky. It was really slippery. It was just all about getting the tires in the window. We were like messing around with the tire pressures throughout the session, just seeing kind of what would work. And then in Q3, we got the pressures just right. And I just had like a clear track ahead. I had a good feel of what the car was doing. And then it was just that flow state feeling of just like totally in the moment and just an awesome experience. I don't know how else to describe it. It was one of those special days.
It's interesting that I asked you about unearthing greatness and you took us to that moment rather than like the podium in your first season, which I think a lot of people think was the most like remarkable result. Would you put that podium in Turkey, in the rain, in that car, as your greatest single lap in F1?
There's been a lot of good laps. You know, I think sometimes like you're not in that position to put it on pole. The car is not, you know, quick enough or whatever, but you know, you qualify like 10th, but like, you know, inside, like that was everything. And those days feel good too. So the greatness is in the preparation and the teamwork and everything that goes into those moments, you know, the outcome, the result, it's special and it feels amazing, but it's everything that goes on behind the scenes, you know, leading up to those moments that, yeah, I look back and think like, wow, that was awesome, that was special.
And you said that you feel nervous until you put your helmet on. What is the process that you go through to go from slightly nervous, wondering what's going to happen in a session, to being like ready for the fight? What goes on there?
Yeah, it's just like, it's those pre-race butterflies. I think, you know, I've had them since day one of karting when I was 8 years old. I think it's just those little nerves, they never go away. It's that like anticipation, you know, what's going to happen, how's it going to go. I'm 26 now and, you know, from when I was 8 years old, that just hasn't changed. It's just always been there. That's like when you know it's go time. You know, it's time to rock and roll.
I think one of the really interesting things about your role is that you're a solo sportsman in a team environment, which is unique. So when you talk about teamwork and collaboration, what is your role when it comes to working as a team?
As a driver, like it's about getting the most out of the car, right? But there's so much that goes into it off the track, you know. It's setting up the car, it's communicating with the engineers.
What's the secret to that? Because I think communication doesn't get spoken about enough. What have you learned over the years about how to do that well?
I mean, I think it's fundamental in our sport, you know, to get the most out of yourself, to get the most out of the car, you need to get the most out of the people around you. Really lean into what everyone around you can bring and help you succeed. And a lot of that's just the setup work here at the factory, you know, spending the time away from the track to just have a chat with everyone here and what they're doing, how they're changing the car, how the car's evolving, what you need from the car to get more out of it, and how we can make changes to do that. And I think it's all those moments, all that kind of communication when I'm outside the car that I think is what really makes the difference.
And do you think it makes a genuine difference to the speed and the results?
Yeah, for sure, I do, because I think when you have everything you want behind the wheel, that's when you can get the most out of yourself, you know? Everything needs to feel good out there. Because when it doesn't feel good, you know, that's when you can't get the most out of yourself. And that's where I think a lot of people see us on TV on, you know, Saturday, Sunday, And it's like, oh, it's this individual sport, the driver's in the car, but there's a whole team behind it.
I like what you said there about if you don't feel good, you can't get the most out of the car. What percent of being a successful Formula One driver do you think is mental, and what percent is physical?
I think 95% is mental.
Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I think like any sport, you need to be physically prepared and fit and strong and all that, but you have to have that confidence and belief in yourself.
Well, it's a good answer because Usain Bolt told me it was 95% as well.
Yeah.
And if it's good enough for the man who transformed athletics, it's certainly good enough
there you go.
for a man who's racing in Formula One. What have you employed in your life to make sure that your mental health and your mental happiness is in the best place possible?
I think structure and consistency is really important. I try to just stay consistent with my routine on the track, off the track.
And what things are in that routine?
Yeah, I mean, so the training, the mental prep, what am I focusing on going into this weekend? What are the challenges ahead? What are the conditions looking like? And then I think just also that disconnection, there's, I think, that balance between like thinking about racing a lot and the weekend ahead, and then also like taking time, when we're not racing, like little days off and stuff, to just like switch off the brain, recharge, reset, and then get back into it.
I bet that's something you've had to learn though, because I think at the very beginning people think, right, I must be 24/7, 100% of my life thinking about racing. And actually sometimes it is the times when you're not thinking about racing that's probably good for you mentally.
Yeah, I think it's like anything. I think a balance. Balance is key, I mean, I think about golf a lot, and you just see like their sport is like the perfect example of like, you can get so obsessed with like your swing and everything you're doing, but then there's like that time to kind of switch off a bit and just come back tomorrow and take a swing at it.
See, I don't think we can talk about greatness actually without talking about struggle, because as you and I both know, struggle is very much what you have to go through on the path to greatness. What's your process for dealing with those difficult races, those difficult weekends?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, we can talk about the podium and the poles, but like really want to talk about like, let's talk about the losses, like I think that's where you learn the most about yourself and to grow, from those tough moments. I think that's where you really grow as a person, as an athlete, driver, from those struggles, from those hard days. What can you learn from it? How can you come back next week and be better? We all love the highs, we all love the champagne celebrations, but it's really in those hard moments, in those, tough times that we learn the most about ourselves and we grow.
So I've got a 9-year-old son called Sebastian. He's a slight Lance Stroll obsessive, so he plays the PlayStation, right? And he always plays as Aston Martin as you. And I told him I was coming to meet you today, and he was like, why do I not get a day off school? Why do I not get to go? I was like, well, because your mum would tell me off. But actually he said to me, I said, have you got one question for Lance? And he said, yeah, like, does he ever have bad days? And I think this is so important for us to talk about this, because I think for a 9-year-old boy like Seb, who just sees you as a Formula One driver, he imagines there's never a bad day.
Yeah.
Right? Would you be willing to share a time when things were tough or a bad day and what you learned, what you did to learn from that, or how you grew from that?
Yeah. I love that he's playing the video game. That's good. That's good.
But I've had to teach him to turn off that because he had no damage on. He was just bumper carring. I was like, this is not realistic.
It doesn't work like that.
And now he keeps going, but the front wing keeps falling off.
Yeah, happens sometimes.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
No, I mean, I think we never want to have a bad, like I never want to have a bad day. I want every day to be great, perfect, but that's just not the reality of sport. I think in sports and in anything in life that that you pursue that's challenging, there's going to be those highs and there's going to be those lows. And I think you have to accept that before you even go into it. Before every season, I think to myself, there's going to be good days and bad days. And like, I have to accept that now, before I even start the season. So, I mean, this past weekend in Austria, it sucked on Sunday. I had a terrible race. There was some things I would have done differently. There's a time to learn, reflect, and then there's that time to kind of draw a line, move on, focus on the next race.
What's the process for getting to that point where you go, okay, I'll put that to bed now? Like, do you talk to people?
Time,
Do you make
experience,
notes?
yeah, and I think a good team of people around you for sure. I'm very fortunate to, have people around me that help support me on that front when I'm dwelling on what happened last weekend. They're pulling my arm and saying, come on, next week, Silverstone, new race, new opportunity. Let's get it. So I think there's definitely a lot is support, but a lot is just also learning with time and growing. When I was, 18 years old, I would take longer to get over hard days than I do now. I think now I still hate them. They still suck. That's never going to change. But I can draw a line and
It's
move
such
forward.
an important realization, though, that those hard days are as much part of the journey as the good days. We first met actually when you wouldn't even remember, I was hosting the launch for the Williams F1 car in your first season. And I remember looking at this 18-year-old thinking, wow, okay,
Yeah.
you've got a lot ahead of you. And then in that first season, you go and manage to get on the podium. Would you take us back to that race in Azerbaijan and I guess the moment when you felt at your greatest that weekend?
Long time ago. Back when I was young. I remember the whole weekend. I remember feeling good in the car from lap 1 of the first practice. And I was just like, yeah, this could be a good weekend. So yeah, I remember the car Baku it's all about having confidence on the brakes. You have these long straights and it's like, Monaco with, Monza braking zones and downforce. So, having confidence on the brakes and in the car to get close to the walls and all that is key. And I remember from like the first lap of the weekend, I had that feel in the car where it was just clicking and it was feeling good. We qualified well on Saturday, and then Sunday was just chaotic. It was just like staying cool, staying out of trouble, keeping the car in one piece was really key to getting a good result out of it. And that's kind of what happened on that day. I remember there were guys crashing out, and then Seb and Lewis had their moment, and Lewis I think had a issue with the headrest, so he had to pit, and then Seb got a penalty, and then like next thing I knew, I was like second on the road with like this 15-second gap to, I think it was Valtteri in third. And I remember clipping the wall with 2 laps to go, and I thought it was all over. So turn 4, I just turned in a bit too early, and I hit the front left on the inside wall, and I was like, oh my God, it's done. And for like a split second, I like closed my eyes, just like open them, like, wow, I got away with it. And there was like another lap to go.
So you shut your eyes thinking,
A
well,
lap to
open my
go.
eyes, there's going to be no front wheel on this car.
A lap to go in the race. And Valtteri just got us at the line because like I had no more energy left. I was using all my energy to stay out of his DRS.
Right.
And
So
with like one lap to go,
button,
and there was just nothing left. So he got me at the line, which was a bit of a bummer, but it was still just, a great day for the team, for me. I remember finishing my season in F3 16, so the year before. And like the last race of the season, I won the race and I was on the podium. And I thought to myself, enjoy this moment because it might be a long time until you stand on a podium again.
Mate, well done, by the way, because to do it
man.
a few races after you were in F3 is absolutely incredible. And now you're taking time to enjoy it, because like, I've spent my career in broadcasting with people who no longer get to do the sport they did. And all of them say, I wish I just enjoyed the moment a little bit more.
Yeah.
Do you take time for that, or is it so relentless and the pressure is so high?
It's true. I think we're all guilty of like not enjoying those moments enough, and then like the next thing comes up and it's like, okay, we're on to that. But it is nice to reflect and kind of smell the roses sometimes and just like, enjoy the journey. And I think that it is important, but we're in this kind of intense sport, and it's all about like next weekend.
And you do work with a therapist or a sports psychologist?
Yeah, for sure. I done work with multiple over the years. I'm always curious on like how I can be better mentally, technically, And just like my process going into the weekends, like how can I be a better driver, athlete? Yeah, I love that, the mental work, the psychology around sports and racing, and I think there's different chapters in your career where there's times when everything's very clear and simple, and it's like you kind of have it all figured out, and there's times when it's not so clear and it's not so simple. You have to kind of change the way you go about things.
What's the best advice that you've been given in one of those sessions that has been really valuable to you?
I think every day, like, it's different. The situation is changing all the time. Like you might just like have had 5 really good races, and there's like a recipe of like what you're doing and it's working. And then you're like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing that. And then there's times when like it's not working. Like you have to change the way you go about things. So I don't think there's like one specific, like, have fun, enjoy your career, and like don't take it too serious, like anything like that I've like been told that like has resonated, that's changed my life. I think it's just the constant, consistent communication and mental work that's key to getting the most out of yourself. That process, I think, is what's really been important for me. It's being consistent with that.
If we're searching for greatness in this conversation, actually greatness is constantly looking at the processes that you've got in place, asking yourself some tough questions about what does and doesn't work. But it actually sounds to me like really what you're saying is you have to develop an acceptance that good stuff and bad stuff will come your way.
Yeah.
And it just is.
For sure.
It isn't good or bad, it just is what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was like that magic, there's that magic bullet or whatever, like you just never have a bad day again, but it just doesn't work like that, It just doesn't work like that.
From everything you've learned and experienced and been through, what would your advice be to people who are having a tough time or are struggling to find their own version of greatness?
Just keep digging deep and keep grinding. People are going to try and bring you down and, tell you can't do it, and like, but you just got to stay in your lane and just keep believing and keep grinding. That's what it's all about.
What have you learned about dealing with that kind of scrutiny and that kind of criticism, which is part of the course in your world? And
For sure.
If I'm being honest, from what I see from the outside, I think you get your unfair share of that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's hard.
I put it, yeah, it is for sure. I think it's like when I like to see it as just noise. If I buy into it, it bothers me for sure. But that's where I'm fortunate that I have good people around me, that I love, that I trust, and I put my attention and value their opinions. And I kind of try and live in my world and not be world in that sense, because there's always going to be criticism. People are very short-minded. You have a couple good races, you're great. You have a couple bad ones, you suck. That's never going to change. And that's why I think just being surrounded by important people and valuing the opinion of people that you care about, that you value, that you really know, like, okay, their opinion is what matters, and don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, I guess, something like that.
That's exactly the phrase. So you first started with Felipe Massa, who was obviously highly experienced, and you were 18 years old. What did you learn from him?
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from all of them. With every teammate, you see like different strengths, and it helps like you get better as a driver because you just see things that they're doing better than you in some areas, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna, take that on board and like just like put that into my arsenal. So yeah, Felipe, loads of experience. I learned a lot about managing tires in Formula One, and which is very different to Formula 3, and communicating with engineers, setup of the car. Yeah, and then I was teammates with Checo. He was a great teammate. We had a great relationship on the track, off the track. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from Seb, Fernando. I mean, we can, sit here for ages. I could tell you, everything I've learned, but it's just lots of little things. Every driver has their strengths and weaknesses, and, you know, when you have teammates, it's like you're just taking all that on board. I've been very fortunate to have great relationships with my teammates. I've enjoyed definitely the experience with all of them.
Good man.
Sure.
Top man.
Thanks,
man. It was really good.